comes from the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verses 1 through 14. Let us listen for the word of God. God said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall mark for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. Speak to all the community of Israel, saying, on the 10th of this month, let each family take a lamb for each household. If a household is too small for a whole lamb, it shall join its closest neighbor in obtaining one. The lamb shall be divided into proportion to the number of people who eat of it. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a year-old male. You may take it from the sheep or from the goat. You shall keep it until the 14th day of this month. Then the whole assembled congregation of Israel shall slaughter it at twilight. They shall take some of the blood and put it into the doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat it. They shall eat the lamb that same night. They shall eat it roasted over the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roasted over the fire with its head, legs, and entrails. You shall let none of it remain until the morning. Anything that remains in the morning you shall burn. This is how you shall eat it: your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And you shall eat it heartily. It is the Passover of God. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both human beings and animals. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague shall destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be a day of remembrance for you. You shall celebrate it as a festival to God. Throughout your generations, you shall observe it as a perpetual ordinance." Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Thanks be to God.
Our gospel reading this evening comes from the Gospel according to John, chapter 13. Let us listen again for the word of God.
Now before the festival of the Passover, Jesus, knowing that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to God, loved his own who were in the world. He loved them to the end.
The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus.
And during supper, knowing that God had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table.
Jesus got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then Jesus poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him.
Jesus washed the disciples' feet and wiped them with the towel. He said to Simon Peter, he came to Simon Peter, who said to him,
Lord, are you going to wash my feet?
Jesus answered, "You do not know now what I am doing, but later you will understand."
No, you will never wash my feet.
Unless I wash your feet, you have no share with me.
Oh, Lord, not my feet only, but also wash my hands and my head.
One who has bathed does not need to wash except for the feet, but is entirely clean, and you are clean, though not all of you.
For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason he said,
Not all of you are clean.
After Jesus had washed their feet, had put on his robe, and had returned to the table, he said to them,
Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for this is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet.
You ought to wash one another's feet.
For I have set an example that you should also do as I have done to you. Very truly I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are a messenger greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them.
You are blessed if you do them.
After saying this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and declared, Very truly I tell you, one of you will betray me.
The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he was speaking. One of the disciples, the one whom Jesus loved, was reclining against his breast.
Simon Peter motioned at him to get him to ask Jesus who he was talking about.
So, while reclining next to Jesus, he asked him, Lord, who is it?
Lord, who is it?
Jesus answered, It is the one to whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in this dish.
So when he had dipped the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, son of Simon Iscariot. After he received the piece of bread, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him,
Do quickly what you are going to do.
Now no one at the table knew why he had said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the common purse, Jesus was telling him, buy what you need for the festival, or that he should give something to the poor.
So after receiving the piece of bread, Judas immediately went out. And it was night.
And it was night.
And it was night.
When he had gone out, Jesus said,
Now the human one has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in the human one, God will also glorify the human one in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me. And as I said to the religious leaders, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment.
a new commandment.
That you love one another.
Love one another.
Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another.
You should love one another.
By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another.
Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Thanks be to God.